Hello, it's me, your friendly neighborhood luchador, Phenomeno here, and I'm back with another one of these behind-the-scenes sort of things. If you are not aware, recently I released this match, King Page versus Matt Gray, and apparently a lot of people liked it. And it was a little humbling to see so many people enjoying it. But I decided that it might be a good idea to go a bit more in depth with the match and what I was going for with it, because unfortunately, I'm not really sure if everything I was hoping for was able to get across. And it's always fun to talk about my work in a more, what's the word? Not descriptive, analytical way. So I will say, before I get started, that, I have done one of these before. Ironically, well, not ironically, but interestingly, it was on another Matt Gray match. Which is interesting because this match is a sequel to the last match. So I will be referring to that match. That match, of course, being Arthur Reeves versus Matt Gray. So I will be referring to not only that match, but things I touched upon when discussing that match. So if there are some things that I speak about which don't really make sense, I would suggest watching partway through that last thing. I'll include what's it called? Time stamps or whatever to the last video where I spoke about it before. With that being said, let's get right into it then. So during the entrances, I will explain the story that was leading up towards this match. I'm only privy to part of the story, however. The thing with these two people, which is King Bailey Page and Matt Gray, is that they've had this story going on in places aside from RSW, and basically in places aside from E-federations that I am aware of. They've described their story as very long running. But from what I have seen in RSW, it was meant to be the most personal and violent that it had gotten to this point. Essentially, this dude here, he went a bit crazy since he lost his opportunities to Matt Gray against Matt Gray twice, I think. And in order to get a third match against him, he decided to start targeting Matt Gray's friends. He broke the leg of Marcus Kruger, his longtime rival. He gave Kota Amura a concussion, and he basically did the same thing to another one of his friends, ZK. I guess he also did beat up Rosenthorn, but that was, I think, the second time he did that. But the most important thing is that in each one of these attacks, he always used a chair. Except with Rosen. That one, it was on me. I didn't come up with the whole he attacks people with chairs thing up until after that, because I was the one in charge of having him attack everyone. But either way, he has been exceptionally violent. I think that might partly be on me, because I decided to have all of his attacks on people except for with Rosen, because that wasn't part of my, I guess I didn't have the long running plan in my head at that point. But each one of King Page's attacks have been visceral, and incredibly violent, much more violent than we've seen in RSW with things along those lines. So it makes sense that at this point Matt Gray would be incredibly ticked off at Page. Of course, which is what Page wanted. This was his whole plan to begin with. But the reason why this is a sequel to the match he had with Arthur Reeves is because it's somewhat similar in terms of its setup. Matt Gray is defending against someone that he has a not necessarily a disagreement with, but a stark repulsion of. With Arthur Reeves, it was less personal, more philosophical. He disliked the way that he wrestled and what he represented. As such, that when that match occurred, it wasn't, while it was pretty back and forth and kind of he was aggressive, it wasn't as aggressive as this match was going to be. Nonetheless, I did touch upon some similar topics that I did in the Arthur Reeves match. I don't really think anyone noticed that. Probably because not many people watched the Reeves match, but hey, that's what this video is for. To help explain. Alright. I think I said everything I needed to say, so let's skip to when the match begins. Alright. So, the referee shows off the belt. And excuse me. Typically, with Ready, Set, Wrestle, the show that this match takes place in, there's always a pause before the match begins, so John, the owner of the company, can say Ready, Set, Wrestle. Graphic appears on screen, the bell rings, and the match begins. It's sort of been a trademark going on so far. I have figured out, I have been doing a couple of things in some matches to, like, what's the word? Not break the trend, because I think it is a good trend, but to use that trend to my advantage to make some surprising moments or tell interesting parts of the story. And here, I was like, do either of these two at this point honestly give a fuck enough to wait long enough for that to even happen? Their feud is so personal that they are raring at the bit to go at each other. And so, before the bell even rings, Paige just runs in, sends Matt Gray down into the into a sitting position. An explosive start to this match, and it sets the pace already almost instantly that this is going to be a very, very fast, hard-hitting match. So it goes off the ropes, and immediately Matt is on his feet again. This was to, in case anyone had a small inkling, like, oh my god, is this going to be squash? This is to say that no, it's not going to be a squash. While Paige is hyper aggressive and raring to go, Matt is just as aggressive and just as raring to go. So he gets knocked into the corner, but he immediately gets back up, starts beating the crap out of him with a clothesline. First chop. Second chop. And he is on the forefront already. So apparently, this is news to me. Apparently Matt Gray doesn't usually chop people. I thought that he did at least once or twice. The reason why I had him do a chop here is because I think chops are very brutal, but also very simple. I think anybody could do a good chop. Well, not a good chop, but anyone can do a chop. All you have to do is backhand someone's chest as hard as possible. And it's incredibly painful, so you can be as stiff as you want to be without doing any long-lasting damage. Whoops. So, yeah, just doing some chops, and then this move here, where he grabs him by the jaw, I do know that Matt has done this before, because I had him do it before. But this is meant to be him showing utter complete disrespect to Paige. Like, no respect in this match, just pure, unadulterated hate. So he starts chopping the fuck out of his face, but Paige, this is the first time anybody has taken those shots and just did not allow him to continue. Paige is the first person to have ever gotten out of that move. And he responds by busting him open. Strong knee to the face. And the match has only gone on for about 20 seconds. The aim for this was for people to go, oh my god, Matt Gray got busted open already. As you can see here, yes, he got busted open kind of badly. And it was to help keep the initial statement that this was going to be a hard-hitting, fast-paced match. And hard-hitting you see here, with Paige going for his typical strikes. Whoops. But Matt is able to quickly counter and just backdrop suplex back of the head. This is Matt's typical MO. Or at least I think it is. Where he just suplexes you and suplexes you. Sometimes strikes you, but mainly suplexes and strikes before he's able to go for the finish. And he's doing his typical MO here. Original point. Even though he got smacked to hell, he is still focused enough to try and do his game plan. But Paige knows that and has an instant counter for it. Unfortunately, Matt Gray is still a very high competent competitor and Dragon Suplex. So, I wanted to show that while both of these two people are angry with each other, since this is a very personal feud, there are two different ways to show anger with a character. Well, there's more than two, but these are the two that I was focusing on. There is explosive anger, where you are just wild and going from the get-go and doing everything possible to let out that anger. That is Paige. He is explosive. He is like swinging for the fences. We saw already with the strikes that he's doing that he is just out for blood. And then there is seething anger. Anger that isn't necessarily all out, but is kept down low so that the person is using it as some sort of fuel or motivation or whatever. Matt Gray has been very focused. His strikes are pinpoint accurate. He doesn't strike like in a wild combo like Paige has been doing. He has been focusing. Like the chops, all aimed at around the chest and neck and face area. And then the suplexes. Both of them were meant to just crack Paige down on the back of his head. And there's no two ways around it. If you get dropped on the back of your head, you're not gonna be okay. And Matt knows this. It's his version of wanting to kill the hell out of Paige. Rather than just beating him to a pulp, he's still using his typical style, but now there's some sort of malevolence to it. As we can see here, great selling animation of the game, for once. Paige is holding the back of his head and his neck to show that it's being effective. And this is another thing. Actually, hold on. So, this is a small thing that I decided to do. Matt really, really likes to try and hit the Rainmaker because I think he likes Okada. I mean, who doesn't? But one thing he always wanted was for someone to remake the Bitchmaker counter, where Okada counters the Rainmaker by slapping the taste out of Okada's mouth. I decided to take another spot from that match which is, unfortunately, I think the spot that left Shibata in the state that he is right now. So, Matt Gray made the small mistake here of being a bit flashy, thinking that he's in a spot where he can start disrespecting him even more by doing a flashy move like the Rainmaker. Unfortunately for him, Page is just as hyper focused as he is, and is still raring to go. As such, he gets headbutt, and not just a normal headbutt so badly that Page broke Matt's nose. If you can see right there, Matt is bleeding from his nose because it's broken. But not only that, Page headbutt Matt so hard that he busted himself open on Matt's nose. And that is to show a couple of things. That one, Page really ain't nothing to mess with. Two, he hates Matt so much that he is going to harm himself to hurt Matt. Which, I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, is also a bit of a mirror to their view thus far. Because the people that Page hurts to get to Matt are also his own friends. Koda, Amura, and Z freaking K. I don't know if they're friends anymore in this storyline, but they were definitely friends before Page decided to whack both of them with chairs. One could assume that had an emotional effect on Page as well, but he just swallowed it to get at Matt. That was not on purpose, but I will accept the credit for it. Either way, Matt is in some serious trouble here now. Up until now, he was in control, but just one falter, and suddenly he's on the back foot and he's even more damaged than before. Though Matt is quickly able to get back on the front foot and tiger suplex against the back of the neck. And something I should notice here, put notice on here, I suppose, is this is part of the more of the video editing aspect of the match. I don't know if you have noticed, but on each one of the suplexes, and I think on some particularly strong strikes, I added a small screen shake effect to add more impact to the moves. Like so. Whenever I make a match, I typically only do that for finishers to add more impact to those moves and be like, oh, this move has to be the end. I think that this was obviously it was for the exact same effect. Only instead of it being like, oh, this must be the end of the match, it's more, oh my god, he's trying to kill him. So Page is now on the back foot again. Matt is still hyper aggressive. Gotta send him off the ropes. Another dragon suplex. Again, Page grabs at his neck. He is very clearly feeling it. But, nonetheless, he is able to fight his way out of it and go back to his striking game. Now, this one was meant to be Page showing some disrespect here. Very typically, he's not the one going for suplexes. He throughout this whole match, he hasn't grappled once. He has just been striking the hell out of Matt, using Matt's own game plan against him. So Matt, for one, he's tough as fuck, so he's just gonna get up from that. But if you can see his face, which is what I was hoping for, he didn't really take that as a move per se, but more like as how do I put this? That was less of a move to damage and more like a move to show disrespect, because he's basically saying, oh, you think you can suplex, Mr. McRae? I can suplex too, and I can do it better than you. Now, of course, takes offense to this, gets right up, and it just gets utterly brained for it. Like, absolutely smashed. Honestly, I kind of like this spot the most in the match, because Matt's like, While Paige takes advantage of Matt's fury beginning to become less on the down low and more explosive, similar to his. And the mistake between them is that these two are not the same. Matt cannot have the rage like Paige does and expect to just do it without any recompense. He cannot allow his emotions to get the better of him or he will get rocked to oblivion like here. So I mentioned in the last commentary that it's very difficult for me to figure out a way to get people to get onto the apron, but I did manage to figure out a way to get it semi-consistently. Having both wrestlers be at low to medium health and hit with a strong strike that puts them on the ground will typically get them to roll out to the apron or to the floor. It took a lot of experimenting to get that knowledge, I'll tell you what. So, as if the disrespectful German wasn't enough, this is also part of Matt Gray's MO, the apron exploder suplex. He's done it countless times to many people. And Paige is just doing it here, not just to damage, but again, to say, I am better than you. The difference is, unlike the German suplex, this one actually hurts him quite a bit, to a point where Paige is able to go for the cover. And at 2, he lets it go. It's left ambiguous if Matt would have been able to kick out on his own, and at this point, honestly, it doesn't really matter. The point is, Paige doesn't want to win yet. He just wants to let loose all the fury, all the aggression, everything that has been pent up in him for the past 6 months in the storyline, and he just wants to beat the shit out of Matt Gray. Matt Gray, however, is still all there, so of course he's gonna start fighting back. He tries for his typical MO again, but unfortunately at this point, it just doesn't work. And Paige is being mega disrespectful now. In fact, he does it to a point that, if you can see, he actually badly bruised Matt's face. What was I going to say? Yes. In the last match that Gray had with Reeves, he was in a similar predicament similar in that he tried to up the tempo, but Reeves was able to handle it. He was able to keep the pace with Gray. Here, Gray tries to up the tempo and go back to his usual game plan, but instead of keeping pace with him, Paige is just... How do I put this? Paige isn't keeping pace with him, no. Instead, he is just shutting it down, countering it before he's even able to manage it, and is going back full disrespectful, keeping to his own plan of just wild striking, and the scary thing is, that's working. It's badly damaging Matt. Matt has more wounds on his face than Paige does at this point. The only time Paige has been badly hurt is because he hurt himself to hurt Matt. So this is when Matt starts borrowing some of Paige's game plan with some ferocious striking, and it works. Though the first time Paige, I should say, gets damaged without his own action, is when Matt decides, okay, you want to play this game, then we will play this game. And he starts using Paige's own strategy against him. He is slowly sliding from seething fury to just utter rage. And again, it's working. Now, he tries to go back to his own plan of technical wrestling, but he is still as pissed as Page is. As such, even though he has the traditional headlock, he instead of just focusing on keeping it in, is just keeping it there so he could put more pain on Page. Case in point. And back to a grounded headlock. The unfortunate thing is that because Matt is not used to just being all out, again, like I said before, this is not his usual MO. He is sliding his way into Page's game. Page is very easily able to get out of that predicament and take advantage of it. Not done there. He just yeets him full onto the corner, and that, I have to say, is my second favorite spot in the match, because it's not anything flashy. He just grabs you, slams you shoulder first into the post. And I think that's what part of what makes this match so brutal. It's the fact that there's not much flashiness. There's not much flips or anything along those lines. It's just two people beating the crap out of each other. And unlike in most wrestling matches where, like, let's say, for example, someone hits you with a Hurricane Rana DDT, most likely you just, like, flip. So the person who takes this move would flip out of it and be, like, just yeeted away due to the impact of the move as their cell. But what if you get hit with a DDT and instead of just bouncing, you just crumple? Like, just go motionless. That's kind of what I was going for here. No flash, just pure offense, and the selling or the result of the move is just a plain old realistic reaction, which is just to just crumple. And the fact that they're crumpling and reacting like this is what adds to the brutality of it. And that's in me adding screen shakes to basically every strong strike and grapple that there is. But anyway. So now Paige is trying to go a bit flashy by going to the top. And just like with Matt, when Matt tried to be flashy with Rainmaker, it doesn't work. Matt takes advantage of Paige's cockiness, or so he thinks. He makes the same mistake. Instead of just dragging Paige down or something, he instead starts pulling him up for something or the other. But instead, he's just yanked back down into the mat. So, I mentioned before how I split. Actually, no. I'll go to that a bit later. Instead, I want you to notice something. This is exactly how the match started, with Matt down in the corner and Paige running off the ropes to do something. Of course, Matt again counters with a clothesline, but Paige is able to duck that clothesline. Tries a clothesline himself, and instead they just do a little dance, I guess, and then he just gets clocked in the back of the neck again. This was to show, I think, either around this point or a couple seconds after this is when I end Act 1, I should say. I guess it's sort of like poetry that rhymes, but it's more to show that even though these two have been have the scars of war upon them, very little has changed thus far in the match. Matt is still physically superior, and as such he is on top, but Paige is getting wiser to him. These two are going more and more intense to try and deal with each other. So Matt taunts and puts him in a powerbomb. And it looks like he's going to try and powerbomb him out of the ring, which is a callback to the match he had against Reeves, where he got powerbombed out of the ring. I guess he felt that it's such a painful experience, he just wanted to hit Paige with it. Mistake, of course, being rather than being pure focus, like, hey, I'll powerbomb you here and then go for your neck again. He's like, I hate you so much, I am going to try and kill you and fling you out of this ring, which is to his ill effect. He gets sent outside again, and Paige takes advantage. So this here is the beginning of Act 2. What we have seen thus far is setting up the relationship between them, assuming that well, when I make a match, I make it in a way that would work if you do have the context and if you don't. So the match itself is a story in of itself. And the story at this moment is Act 1 is setting up and establishing the relationship between these two. That they bloody hate each other, but they have, and are angry at each other, but have two different styles of fury. The mistake with Matt is that he's slowly sliding towards Paige's form of fury, and Paige is taking full advantage of that. Even though Matt has the advantage when it comes to not physicality, but physique, I guess, Paige is able to match it with physicality and pure rage. That, and he's somehow tricking Matt into playing his game. But here we see the equalizer. Well, not really the equalizer, but whatever. So he tries to use a chair like he's done all this time before, but it does not work. Matt grabs him in his sleeper, staying in his own typical game plan of technical wrestling, but sleeper suplex. Again, I feel I'm repeating myself a lot here, so if that's an issue, I do apologize, but yeah, still sliding towards that fury instead of seething rage. Wait, is it seething fury? Whatever. Still sliding towards Paige's typical way of doing things. So he grabs the chair. He waits because he's not focused anymore. He just wants to hurt the fuck out of Paige, and he is loving the fact that he has this opportunity now. But he hesitated a bit too long. He is still a good competitor, though, so when he realizes that mistake, he takes advantage of it when Paige tries to counter. Hits him in the gut with a chair, but despite how good he is, it's too late. Samoan drops right onto that chair for his mistakes. So Paige tries to go for another move. Again, Matt counters, but Paige counters his counter. Because he's just that good, I guess. Northern Lights going to go for a brainbuster, but instead, I guess this is also a callback to his match against Reeves. He was in a similar position before, where his folly, the enemy took advantage of his folly, put him in a move that he was about to end in with a suplex, but Matt managed to counter it into the Kirifuda clutch. And this was the move they actually did to beat Reeves, that other enemy I was referring to. So the camera zooms in, shows how painful the hold is. Maybe Paige is going to tap. Unfortunate thing is, I don't know. Unlike with pins, I don't know how to increase the tension of making it seem like someone is about to tap. I always feel like if a submission goes on for too long, people will know that the other person isn't going to tap out, but I don't know. Anyway, Paige instead is able to slip out of it, and unlike Reeves, he just beats the crap out of Matt's again. Now he finally goes for the pin. He's decided, okay, I realize this dude is a bit too much for me if I keep playing with him, so let's just end the match right now. And Matt kicks out at 1. So now, instead of like, instead of hesitating like Matt did with the chair, Paige just goes for it. Well, I guess Paige did hesitate a little bit because he's like, oh fuck, he kicked out one, but not to relish in the ch- bleh, words, not to relish at the chance of hurting him, but he already knows he's going to hurt him. He's just focusing on doing that now. Just beating the piss out of poor Matt Gray with that chair. And throwing it at his face with good measure. But not even a one count. So now, sorry. So now instead of focusing on basically letting out his aggression, Paige is focused on winning. So now the tables have turned a little. Now Paige is the one that is focused, while Matt is the one that's letting out all of his aggression in a wild manner. While being focused, he's also a little frustrated, but he slowly drags him to the center of the ring and goes back to smacking him with that chair. So this was meant to be like this here was meant to be a bit of a sympathy shot, but also like a, oh my god, Paige is going to kill him sort of thing. Because we can see not only do we see Matt like in a rare position where he's like getting beaten up and whatnot, the focus is on his face, which is to show everything that he has been through throughout this match. And Paige does not care about that. He only cares right now for trying to get the win. So of course, he's just gonna go back to using that chair. Now on the arms. Well, on the arm, I should say. And realizing that he's not gonna get Matt to in the pin, he's going to try and get him to tap out. Using a triangle armbar while on the chair so that Matt doesn't grab it and smack him with it. Now, of course, I know when I was doing this, I was like, okay, people are going to expect Matt to, I don't know, powerbomb him on the chair so that it's going to be like a way to get back at Paige for using the chair on him this whole time. I'm like, no, let's break expectations a little. Instead, Matt punches Paige in the eye so hard that it starts bleeding. And you can see, it's not just blood around Paige's eye. I actually went into Paige's customization and I recolor that whole eye red to make it look like the blood is... Well, I don't think blood comes out of your eye when you punch it. I hope not. I'm not gonna look that up because that sounds like an easy way to give myself nightmares. But the damage is to show that the damage is done to the eye as well, and to up the brutality. But anyway, I did mention before that it was to break expectations. So instead of powerbombing him on the table on the chair, sorry, he instead punches him so much that he has a bloody eye. And then he pile drives him on the chair instead. And he lets loose with some fingers too. So at this point, I was tempted to have Matt pile drive Paige onto the floor. It is something that he's done, a pile driver from the apron to the floor, but I felt that would be too much. I know it's weird to think, too much. Did you see what Matt did to Paige's eye right now? But I think if I was overzealous and not... What is the word? If I was overzealous and not patient, I should say, if I decide to have him do a move like that from the get-go, or do a move like that at all, I do know that people will be like, holy shit, Matt just tried to kill Paige, but I also know in the back of their minds, it'll be like, okay, Page is either going to lose here, or there's no way that Matt's going to win. Because after everything that's occurred in this match thus far, with me focusing on realistic outcomes of brutality, if I were to go ahead and have him do a fucking pile driver to someone from the apron, it would seem like that's the end of the match. And if it isn't the end of the match, that would kind of go against the effect I was going for. Because in the universe I created with this story, a pile driver to the outside would be the finish, not a transitional move. Anyway. So he sends him to the outside and just apron, back suplex. And Page is in some serious pain here. But Matt is not done with him. At this point, you see Page. If he just tossed him into the ring, he probably would have won by now. But he is too into his own fury. He wants to make Page pay for everything that he has done. And interesting thing, I hope that you keen-eyed people noticed, not once in this entire thing did Matt try to go for a pin. Hell, when he tried to go for a submission, in seconds before Page even had the opportunity to tap out, Matt just turned it into a suplex. It's meant to show that while Page wants to win, Page has gotten his fury out. He wants to win right now. Matt is like, oh no, brother, fuck you. I'm not locked in this ring with you. You locked in this ring with me. He wants to hurt him. Unlike Page, Matt has not focused on what is most important. So here he typically does a pile driver, and the thing is, I wanted there to be a slight extended sequence here of counters between the two on the announce table, because then it's like, oh, who's going to smack who through the table? Unfortunately, Matt is too damn big. The counters I was planning on using, it doesn't work with people of Matt's size and weight. If he got hit with the Dude Buster, which would be a natural reaction to someone placing your head between their legs, he wouldn't. Like, the typical counter to that move is that you just elbow your way out of it while in an Alabama slam position. For someone of Matt's size, he just smacks you down to the ground, and that didn't really work for what I was going for. As such, I had to cut the sequence short. So he tries to pile drive him. Instead, King gets to his feet and hits him with a cutter. So even though the sequence was shortened, I did get the effect I was going for. Because, again, it's gotta be like, oh my god, Paige is still in this, and oh my god, Matt is dead. That, and I really do like the shot of both of them just lying motionless on the ground after everything that they've been through. Their wounds, their harshest wounds, I should say, visible. So, yeah, this is now Act 3. Where everything has sort of come full circle. Well, not necessarily full circle, but everything has flipped. Matt is now somewhat of an antagonist in that he just wants to hurt Paige, while Paige is trying desperately to win. He is the underdog in this situation. And he is valiantly, quote-unquote, fighting back against Matt. So he finally gets to his feet, sends him into the ring. But instead of going just in, he grabs another chair. So, at this point, remember what I said with Matt Gray not wanting to win, but to do damage? It's sort of similar here. Gray is out, period. Paige could win. He could just pin him and win. But he has somewhat reverted now. His villainous tendencies are coming back to the forefront. He doesn't just want to win. He doesn't just want to beat Gray. He wants to make a statement, and he wants to basically disrespect him even more. So, he's going to do what he did to Coda. That's sort of not just what he did to Coda, but what he did to Kruger and everyone. Basically, use two chairs to badly damage someone. And he's going to try it here. But as we have seen thus far, in fact, he even hesitates beforehand because he's looking forward to the damage he's going to put in, which is the exact same mistake Gray made before Page countered him. So Gray, of course, counters, chops him onto the ropes, and sends him outside. Now, I don't know the last time Gray did an apron powerbomb. I know it is in his moveset, partly because he hit me with it during his third ever match. But I was thinking, maybe it's sort of his move that he only pulls out once in a blue moon. So, I decided, I think this would be a very fitting blue moon. And just smacks him onto the apron. But he's not done there. After everything that's happened, Gray has a lot of fury that he needs to let out. And he is just letting it out with as much anger and as much power that he can. So, hits him with a trifecta of powerbombs on the outside. So at this point, Page is out of it. Surely Matt can get the win now if he wanted to. But no. Instead, he takes off his gloves. And just punches him clean in the jaw. Now, thinking back on it, I think it would have been a good idea if that punch busted Page open again. But, might have been overkill. And now, Matt shows no hesitation. He's in a mixture of what he was like at the beginning of the match and current, where he's focused, but he is enraged. He's seething with so much fury that he just wants to beat the piss out of Page. And he is doing so with even more ferocity than Page was doing throughout this whole match. It's essentially Matt getting back at Page for every single thing that he has done. And then he's doing this for everything that Page did to Matt. And finally, he hits his finisher, the double-double. But he doesn't go for the pin. Instead, he hits it again. At this point, he's just lost it. He does not want the pin. All he wants is Page's blood. And at this point, he's kind of getting it. And down goes Page. But Matt is not done. Personally, I think that this is the I guess pinnacle? No. Peak of Matt's downfall. Because that was the main story of the match. Page is essentially causing Matt to have a downfall. He is a completely different man at the end of the match than he was at the beginning. He's more similar to Page. But unfortunately for Page, the end result has him sitting in the corner. I kind of wish he was in the exact same corner that Matt was in at the beginning, because that would be poetic justice. But no, he's the one in the corner. And Gray is going all out fury against him. But unlike Gray, Page cannot handle it. He cannot handle Gray at this level of anger. Also, you have no freaking idea how long it took me to get Paige to be busted open like in game and stuff with cosmetics to get this whole thing to work. I swear, it's like I hate the fact that busting people open is randomized. Sometimes it happens at the very beginning of the match, and sometimes it takes 30 freaking minutes. But anyway, this shot here, I think this might be the best shot of, well, not necessarily the best shot, but the shot that tells the story of what happened to Gray throughout this match. Because even though he's at the top, he's at the forefront. After everything that Paige has done to him, he's essentially a broken man. Well, I know it's weird to say that he's a broken man, considering he's the one that just beat the shit out of Paige with a chair. But he is. He, compared to the man that Gray was at the end of his match with Reeves, for example. At the end of the match with Reeves, Gray, he wanted to win and he got it. He was victorious, and he was basically a glimmering shimmer of a champion. But now look at him. Look at what he has done. His knuckles are bloodied from punching the crap out of Paige. He's holding the same sort of weapon that damaged his friends, only this one is slathered in Paige's blood. Look at his face. At this point, I wanted it to be ambiguous what Gray could be thinking. He could be realizing, oh my god, this is what I've done, or he could be relishing in what he did to Paige. While Paige, this is what became of Paige. Paige has done everything to hurt Matt and get him into this match throughout the whole past 6 months before this storyline, and at the end of it, he is just a bloodied man in the corner, staring up as worst enemy. And it's also meant to be ambiguous what Paige is thinking here. He could be thinking, oh my god, what have I done? Or maybe he's not thinking anything at all. Maybe he's unconscious, who knows? But at the end of it, instead of just going for the pin, he puts him in the fade to Gray. And then just plops down. So, at this point, it's very obvious that Gray is going to win. I mean, if he wanted to, he just keep this on for as long as he wanted, and there's no way that Paige is going to get out of it, considering what he's been through already. But, instead, he just lets him go. Now, the reason why he did this is because Gray was never focused on the title at this point. He never went for the pin. He never went for a submission. All he wanted to do was not defend the title, but use the defense of a title as a way to get his hands on Paige after everything that he has done to him. He wanted to beat the shit out of Paige and wanted to make him pay for everything that he has done to everyone that Gray cares about. And as far as Gray is concerned, he succeeded. He did just that. He went through hell to do it, but he did it. And with his mission done, he just leaves. The thing with RSW rules, and okay, I will say it, I don't really like RSW rules. I dislike the fact that it's always no disqualification, anyone can use a weapon, whatever, because it's sort of limiting, you know? But, and I know you say, how can it be limiting when there's no rules? If there are no limits to a story, it kind of paradoxically, I suppose, limits what you are able to do. How many times are you going to have a wrestler just grab a weapon and smack someone with it? It has more of an impact if a wrestler breaks the rules to grab a weapon to smack you with it than if a wrestler can just do whatever they wanted, you know? But that's just my thing here. So, at this point, Matt can just leave. thanks to RSW rules, there's nothing against him just packing up his bags and going home at this point. And he just does that, but...
Matt, I don't think you understand what you've done. I don't think you understood the magnitude of your actions over the past few months. You have, without even realizing it, dug your own grave. You have practically placed that belt in my hands, and you never even knew the moment it all happened. Oh, poor Matthew. All the work we've done together for this moment. There's a few things you must always remember as a king, but the one thing above all others, the one thing you seem to have forgotten, is no matter how you view the people of your kingdom, don't you dare ever turn your back on them.
And he gets betrayed. But, thing I wanted to focus on, in particular, is... Well, for one, first of all, kudos to Paige for that pretty good promo.
Matthew,
but here...
all the work we've done together for this moment, there's a few things you must always remember as a king, but the one thing above all others...
What I wanted to show, like, along with the dialogue, well, not along with the dialogue, this ending portion was mainly John's idea. The story going forward would be Paige working with, basically Matt's own faction while getting them to betray him somehow. I don't remember. But I wanted to show that despite everything that happened, Matt and Paige are kind of the same at this point. Paige did horrible things to get his hands on Matt. Matt did horrible things back to him. At this point, sure, somebody could argue that Matt was justified in going barbaric on Paige, basically crossing a line after everything that Paige had done to him for the past 6 months. But, again, I think this joins with the idea of Matt's downfall. That now, after the match against his most hated enemy, he has become his most hated enemy. They're both standing there face to face, and they're both badly damaged, holding these wounds of war. And I wanted to do it in a way that I don't know if I can get it correctly. Hold on. That in the dissolve shot that I did, if I'm... Patience, Phenom, just watch. Here we go. In the dissolve shot, it's possible to see them face to face and see how badly damaged they both are after the hell that they put through each other, and I wanted it to be like how similar they are to each other, because they have symmetrically similar wounds, I should say. Damaged eye, damaged forehead, and blood on the nose. And I wanted it to be like imply that they are kind of similar after all of that. It also works with the story because Paige had his fun at the beginning of the match. He did everything to Matt that he wanted, and then he started focusing on winning. If Matt had not let Paige go, if Matt had just tapped him out when he had the chance, he still would be advantageous, I guess. He would not be in the position where his own teammates are appearing behind him. And in the end, he just gets double chokeslam for his efforts. So, you don't know, these two guys, Scrap Iron Dragons, they're basically in the faction that he's a part of. So it implies that they betrayed him. So let's just skip forward a bit. So yeah, hit him with their tag finisher, but that was something that John requested. But this is the most important part. As a final fuck you to Gray, after getting him, well, basically after making him lose the after making Matt fall as a man, like down the moral ladder, you know, after getting him betrayed by his own friends, after putting his friends through hell, he is going to do the exact same thing to Gray. He revels in it now. Same way that Gray did before. The difference is Gray doesn't counter. He can't. That was partially because I wanted it to have a small hope spot, like, oh, he's gonna make the same mistake again. Surely Gray's gonna counter. Nope. After everything that happened, Gray can't anymore. And that is the match. Personally, I'm pretty glad that many people liked it. As far as my list of favorites, I'd say it's in like my top 5. It's not really my favorite one, but I am glad that people enjoyed it. And there he is, standing like a king. Well, card-carrying king, I guess. Card-carrying villain? Whatever. He essentially planned it all out. He got the win just like he wanted. So with that being that, I would like people to check out the full match in the description down below. Before I head off, I guess there's one thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention this entire time. And that is the fact that this match was pretty directly inspired by Walter versus Ilya Dragunov. At not the TakeOver match, the NXT UK match. Without that match, I don't think I would have been able to come up with such an interesting one for this. So yeah, if you want to see the similarities, go watch it. But yes, I think if you want to better appreciate this match, I would go watch the Arthur Reeves versus Matt Gray match. Like I said, this is a sequel to that match. Without that original match, I don't think I would have had the groundwork to work with this one. But yeah, that's it. This is El Phenomeno signing off, and I'll be seeing you. Bye. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, subscribe, and maybe watch some more. Be seeing ya.